Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, it has been almost a year since we've had a Harvest Right freeze dryer here on the homestead. We thought we would give you guys an update about how we feel about it overall, some of the things that we've learned about it through the last year, and then we're actually going to do a taste test of a few more foods that we haven't really shown you guys yet.
We've been having freeze-dried food and the process that we go through. We've been including that in a lot of our videos recently because we've been doing a weekly video showing all of the things that we've been preserving in the month of August because we just have a huge harvest coming in.
Now the freeze dryer that we have is the Harvest Right medium-sized freeze dryer. We have the medium-sized freeze dryer and we have the Premier oil pump. If I had the whole thing to do over again, I personally would go with the oilless pump if money were no object. It's quite a bit more expensive, but I do think in the long run it is a little less hassle. Not that the oil pump is a hassle, because honestly you only have to change the oil in it about every 25 to 30 cycles, which really isn't much work at all. In fact, over the past year, Harvest Right has come out with a new filter system for the oil, which has made it really no work at all. So basically what you'll do is about every 25 or 30 cycles, you'll bring out this, looks kind of like one of those Brita water filters, but this is actually what you filter your oil through. You're going to take this cover off, you're going to literally hold this underneath the little spigot on the bottom of your pump, you're going to drain your oil down into here, and it's going to filter through and come out the bottom completely clean. And then you can actually reuse this oil the next time you do an oil change. Basically, you're just reusing the oil over and over. So in a year, we've barely even used any out of this bottle of oil that I purchased. I actually bought this at O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's the Robinair Premium High Vacuum Pump Oil. And, you know, again, it's something I could buy locally. And in a year, I mean, it's only down to about here because you keep reusing it over and over. So really, like I said, I would go with the oilless pump if money were no object at all. But if what you can afford is the oil pump like we have, it's really not a hassle. And if
I were able to do this all over again, I would get the size large freeze dryer just because we have large harvests coming in this time of year. I do large batches of broth. We just do large batches of things around here. Right. So if I had a little bit more freeze dryer space, that's just the more I could preserve. Right. Now, the medium's doing well for us. You know, we're preserving a lot of food, but if
we have it running pretty much nonstop.
But if I had the opportunity to pack that sucker with even more each batch, that'd be awesome. Now, a lot of you have been watching my recent preserving videos and you've noticed that I have not been using this insulator cushion thingy with the freeze dryer. Now, I want to let you know that this is completely optional, and as far as I'm aware, I don't even think they're sending these along anymore. No. I think a lot of people were having a hard time using this and using the door that closes and having a good seal. So when you see that, our old videos, we use this insulator. In our new videos, we haven't been.
Right. Now, as we've been doing videos about the freeze dryer, we've gotten a lot of questions from you guys about how we're storing the food and where to get the supplies to store the food. So I want to go over that with you really quickly. All of the freeze-dried food that we do, I should say most, except for just a few things that we're going to eat right away, we store in Mylar bags. These Mylar bags are, you know, they're extra thick. They seal really well. We actually have a machine that seals these that comes with your freeze dryer when you buy it. And then inside of here we put an oxygen absorber, which basically uses up all the oxygen inside of this bag. And between the bag and the oxygen absorber, if you store these in the right conditions, which is just, you know, kind of room temperature, these will actually last 25 to 30 years. So like in this bag we have fresh tomato powder from our garden this year. And these are all the things we're going to try today, by the way. Fresh green beans out of the garden this year. Some Pico De Gallo that Sarah made. And then poultry broth. So we're going to try all of these in just a little bit. But I wanted to show you guys how we store these.
I've been getting a lot of questions on Instagram about why we don't vacuum seal our freeze-dried food rather than using these Mylar bags and the oxygen absorber and then just heat sealing them. And the reason is These bags in this system are rated for 25 years of storage. The vacuum sealing materials are not rated for long-term storage to this degree.
If you look at the vacuum seal bags, they usually say that they're good for a couple years. So this is definitely a longer term system and really a safer system for all your food. The last thing you want is for you to go to all this work growing and freeze drying and packaging, and then in a year when you open it, it's no good. Now, a lot of you have asked where we get these products. A lot of these we got actually free with the freeze dryer, and I think they send them with every freeze dryer when you buy it. So you can see these are actually the Harvest Right brand, but we also buy the Mylar bags on Amazon. We bought some in bulk through Azure Standard, and same with the oxygen absorbers. To be honest, when we need these supplies, we just kind of look around for the best deal and get them wherever we can at the time, or whoever has the size that we want at the time.
So out of all of the ways that you can preserve food from the garden, from the grocery store if you find a great deal, out of all of the ways, why are we choosing to use a freeze dryer as one of the ways to preserve? Well, the main reason is we want a long-term storage option for the food that we grow and raise here on our homestead. We put a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money into growing really fantastic food for us. When you freeze food, you lose nutrients. When you can food, you lose nutrients. When you dehydrate food, you lose nutrients. With freeze drying, it retains like 95% of the nutrients. Right. So you're getting that nutrition all along.
Right.
The other thing is the length of time that these things are good for. If they're packaged correctly and they're freeze dried correctly, these can last up to 25 years. Now, our plan is not to open these in 25 years, but it gives us some cushion. Say, for instance, something happens to us and physically we can't produce this food, or we don't have the money to go buy food from the grocery store. We have a backstock of food that we grew that we know is filled with nutrition that we can rely on.
Right. Yeah, the plan isn't to wait 24 years and then start using this stuff. The plan is to use this stuff along the way, but isn't it a comforting feeling to know that you can wait 25 years if you want to? That in 25 years, this will still be just as nutritious as it was the day you packaged it. I mean, to me, that's just a comforting feeling to know that you have that option. Not that I think we're going to necessarily use that option.
Right. The other ways that you preserve, the food just doesn't last as long. And so we're really happy to have this as a way to preserve our hard work. So now the fun part can begin. We get lots of suggestions and requests to show you all how they look when they come out of the freeze dryer, how they taste, how do we use the products. So today we brought out some things to reconstitute or to eat freeze-dried and show you what they look like and give you a taste test.
Right. So all of these are foods that we grew or raised right here on our farm, and they're all things that you could easily produce yourselves as well. So we're going to just get right down to it. I think we should start with this one right here, tomato powder. Why don't you tell them what went into this to make it in the first place?
Well, these are actually just cherry tomatoes. And I put them in the freeze dryer. I cut them in half, put them in the freeze dryer. And when they were all done, I blended them up and turned it into tomato powder.
Right.
Now, the purpose of the tomato powder for us is going to be to add to either soups or to thicken my tomato sauce if it's too runny, but also to make tomato paste.
Right.
Tomato paste isn't something that's easy to make from your homegrown tomatoes because it has to cook down so long that it can taste burnt and bitter.
Right. So I love to make homemade pizza, but a lot of times the homemade tomato sauce is a little too thin to use as pizza sauce. So my hope is with this tomato powder, you can just add less liquid to start with and make, like Sarah said, a paste that we'll be able to turn into awesome pizza sauce. So let's open this one first and give it a try. All right, with this tomato powder, we're going to try making two different things. We're going to try making tomato juice, and we're also going to try making tomato paste. We have some water boiling on the stove, so as soon as that's boiling, we can try making the tomato paste. But for the tomato juice, obviously you don't want to drink boiling water, so I just have a good glass of cold tap water. We're going to give that a try. I'm not really sure how much we're going to add here, so I've got a third of a cup measuring cup. I'm going to put that in and see what that does. Or maybe just a little less. You can see the powder there. We're just gonna mix it in. Now this does have the seeds and skin and everything in because we did do these holes, so that actually looks really good. It looks like tomato juice. I know Sarah's not a big fan of tomato juice, so I'll give it a try. So I think I'll let this sit for just a few minutes before we try it, just to make sure everything is fully rehydrated. It sounds like the water is boiling on the stove, so let's get the tomato paste started as well, and then we'll be able to try them both.
Have some boiling water here. I'm also going to put about 1/3 of a cup of the tomato powder in this little bowl and try to turn it into some tomato paste. Now this will require a lot less water than the tomato juice. I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of this boiling water. Now this is, I think, the consistency that we would want for tomato paste. Now like Kevin had said, when we blended these up, these were whole cherry tomatoes, so it does have the seeds in them and it does have the skins in them. So basically we're just gonna let this sit and rehydrate until everything is soft, and then we'll come back to it.
All right, the tomato juice has been sitting long enough, but I have decided to strain it because it is a little on the chunky side for me, so. All right, and then, hey, look, we have more tomato paste, so we can save that and do something with that as well. But here's our tomato juice. Now, I haven't tried it yet. It looks like tomato juice to me. Now, personally, I like tomato juice with a little salt, so I'm going to put a little bit of salt in there. All right, let's give it a try. It's actually really good. It tastes just like fresh tomato juice. It's amazing. It actually tastes exactly like fresh tomato juice. So that's a winner for sure. If you like tomato juice, which I really do, it's absolutely perfect. And you get the byproduct of having some extra leftover stuff to make some more tomato paste. So I actually think the tomato paste has sat long enough as well. It looks really good, but I'm going to let Sarah give that one a try.
And this is actually the perfect consistency for tomato paste. I did not add any more water. I'm just going to take a little bit of a taste. Yes, I'm going to end up double dipping, but we're all family here. It's really good. It doesn't taste quite cooked like a tomato sauce or tomato paste would right out of the can, but it's very good. It's surprisingly sweet. But while we have it here, I'm gonna season it up like we're gonna use it for pizza sauce or something. So I'm just gonna add a few ingredients, just a little bit of salt, a little oregano, put that in there, and then a little bit of garlic. It's gonna make it so good. So this is what we would be doing if we were gonna turn this into pizza sauce. Now the longer this sits, the more you're going to be able to taste really the wonderful oregano flavoring. But let me take a taste now that I've added those things. It's really good. It tastes like when you go to a really nice pizza restaurant where everything tastes so authentic. That's exactly what this pizza sauce tastes like. Fantastic. This is a huge winner. You know, we do have a couple crackers. Kevin made some homemade crackers this morning. So let's try a little bit of this with a cracker. I think you're going to really like this.
All right, let's give it a try. Oh, wow. That is really good. And it is really sweet. I bet from the cherry tomatoes, it doesn't surprise me.
So good.
All right, let's move on to everything else.
So the rest of these three, we're really just gonna get set up so we can try them for you.
Right.
We're gonna be doing poultry broth, which is, you guys, you could use this as bouillon. It's actually, it's gonna be awesome.
Right, but it has all the benefits of homemade bone broth. So
right.
it's really nice to have. You can actually buy bone broth powder, but it's pretty darn expensive.
Right.
So making it yourself is a big plus.
We got some Pico De Gallo in here, which we're gonna try raw, and we're gonna reconstitute some for the dip with the crackers. And then we also have some of the green beans from our garden, which we're gonna try raw also, but then rehydrate.
Right. Here we go. Look at this. I mean, they look just like green beans, and to be honest, they taste exactly like a fresh green bean. They're crunchy. They've got all of the flavor of eating one right out of the garden, but they're super light, and it's really kind of strange how fresh they taste. But we also want to try some reconstituted, so I'm going to put some in the bowl here. And to be honest, this way we haven't really tried them before. So we're going to put them in there, package these back up, and then we're also going to do the same thing with the Pico De Gallo. Can you guys see that down inside the bag? Woo, if you guys could smell that, it smells so good. We're going to put some of that in our bowl as well. And I think I remember when Sarah made this that she told me to be careful that it was really spicy. So, alright, so I'm going to try the Pico De Gallo just the way it is without adding any water back to it first. So I'll just give it a little. Now it's got all the flavors of Pico De Gallo. A little chewy. I mean, I don't think I would just eat it that way all the time, but it is kind of nice. I mean, it's definitely got all of the fresh flavors, which is always the strangest part of the freeze-dried stuff, is just how fresh it tastes. All right, I'm going to add some of the boiling water to our green beans. And I don't really think we can add too much because I think they'll just soak up what they need. So I'm going to put quite a bit in there. And then to the pico, I'm going to try to not go overboard here because we don't want that to be too watery. I'm going to let both of these sit for about 10 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll give them a try. In the meantime, I think Sarah is going to get the poultry broth going.
Well, I want to show you guys what that poultry broth looks like inside there. It's super fluffy. I know you can't tell that from here. I'm just gonna pour some of this into this cup. And I'm gonna add some water too. Now an entire quart of broth was in that container. Maybe I'll add one more. I'm gonna stir that around and let that rehydrate. Now when I make broth, I don't add any salt because when I'm using it in my cooking, I wanna control the amount of salt in my cooking. So I am gonna add a little bit of salt to this because I'm gonna drink it. And I think it will taste nice with a little bit of salt in there. It really rehydrates like a dream. It's almost like, they're kind of like crystals almost when you dehydrate it. Let me taste it. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so good. It's just like poultry broth, just like chicken broth. So good. Can you look inside of there? So good. So this is a huge space saver for me because over the course of the year, I can gallons and gallons of broth. I will continue to can broth because I really do like having some on the shelf. But when I get to a point where I don't want to add any more jars, I'm going to start freeze drying it more and more so I can just have that shelf stable for a long-term storage. I absolutely love it. This is a winner.
All right, these have been sitting for about 10 or 15 minutes. It's time to give these a try. let's start with the green beans. I'm going to try one first. They're much chewier than a fresh green bean.
Yes.
They're not crunchy like they would be out of the garden. They're a little more rubbery than they would be fresh. But I think these would be really good in soups, things where you're going to kind of cook them down anyway.
Right.
The flavor is exactly like a fresh green bean.
Absolutely. Right. The flavor is exactly like a green bean. The texture for me is more like when you heat up frozen green beans. Right.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's like. Yeah. It's like when you just thaw out
frozen green beans, yeah. But the flavor is exactly like fresh.
Right. All right, let's try the Pico De Gallo, because Pico De Gallo is always fresh. I mean, it's something that you eat fresh. Yep. So let's give that a try.
I know how spicy this is, so I'm not going to go overboard.
Now that is very good.
Flavor's so good.
Right. Again, not exactly the same texture as fresh, like a little more soft.
Right.
But excellent. The flavor is really good.
And it's spicy.
It is spicy. But the flavor is very, very good.
I would do this.
So I would say both of these are definite winners. This Pico De Gallo, I think, is a much more like fresh than the green beans are, but the flavor on both of them is perfect. It's spot on.
Now, you guys, the freeze dryer has been an amazing addition to our homestead. We're so glad that we have one. We'll continue to use it over and over again. We have learned some things, though, that don't do well in the freeze dryer.
Right. Some things that you guys have asked us, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? Right.
Some of these things have been because we've experienced it ourselves, and others we've just learned and read what doesn't do well in a freeze dryer. So the main thing is things that are super oily or fatty, like butter, bacon fat, anything that's super oily, like we wouldn't be able to put in our pesto because the oil wouldn't come out of it. It wouldn't freeze dry out of it.
Now you could freeze dry all of the other parts of the pesto minus the oil, and then add the oil when you take it out and mix it up that way, and it'll be perfect.
Right. Other things that don't really do very well are super sugary or thick types of sugary things like honey, syrup.
Because those things all have a low water content to begin with.
Right.
And the whole point of freeze drying is that you're taking all of the water, all of the moisture out. Well, those things don't have a lot of moisture in the first place.
Right.
So there's nothing to really take out.
So I was hoping to be able to freeze dry like coffee creamer. So I tried half cream and half milk, so half and half. It didn't work. It got really gummy. It was just too heavy. It was
because
too
the cream
fatty.
is all fat. I mean, that's what cream is. So the milk does well, but not the cream.
Too much fat, too heavy.
So those are some of the things that we have learned just don't work well. But you guys, in general, we are so happy with the freeze dryer. We absolutely would get one again if we had the opportunity. I mean, it will be something that we'll use for a long, long time. And if it's something you guys are interested in, we will leave a link in the video description so you guys can check them out. I think it's a great addition to just about any homestead.
You guys, so we hope that you enjoyed our video today and hope that you learned something. We hope that if you had questions about the freeze dryer, that we touched on a lot of those topics today. If you're enjoying videos like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. And as always, really the best way you can help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.